So this is the Power BI webinar with ActionFlow. And so some of you may be familiar with Power BI. If you're not, that's perfectly okay. And we'll go over what it looks like to have ActionFlow integrate with Power BI, and then also discuss what does it look like to get your shop set up with Power BI. The goal is, we hope it's fairly seamless, but data, people can have entire wings of their company dedicated to data. So sometimes it's really simple to get up and running, and sometimes we say, hey, why is this not matching up? We have to kind of talk through some data reconciliation. So we'll just talk about what it looks like to get up and running and what are some obstacles that we may encounter. So let me go ahead and share my screen. As always, if you have a question, you can put it into the chat. Yeah, you can put in the chat, and then I'm paying attention to chat. If you've put your question in the chat and I have not seen it, you're also welcome to speak up too. So this is Microsoft Power BI. It's a Microsoft product, and it's about data. And what's cool about it is these pretty sexy looking visuals that can process your data very quickly. And so you're able to gather information quickly from Power BI, the platform. So I'm going to switch over. So this is the Power BI website. I'm going to switch over into our ActionFlow support Power BI page. And so this might be kind of a good helpful reference point. So I will, here, let me put this in the chat. It's support.actionflow.net/Power BI. It's in our knowledge base. And this basically says what I just said. It has a quick video that describes what is Power BI. So this is how we go from ActionFlow to Power BI. So in that video, they're talking more generally about how anybody can integrate with Power BI. What we have is your data securely stored on the cloud. Because we work with Microsoft Azure, that's our Microsoft Azure is the cloud. And then Power BI is able to tap into the data, and then we're able to provide visualizations to you. And what we can do is, because we have all that data, we're able to filter it and just show you the data relevant to your shop. So let me go ahead and let's open this up now. So here is this is what I call a starter dashboard. So when we would get started, or if you're interested in Power BI, what we can do is we'll just go over, we can have a quick, 15-30 minute call. And what I'll actually do is pull in the data that I have specific to your company. Yeah, and so we'll pull in the data specific to your company. And so right now, obviously, I'm going to do it as a demo. I pulled some demo data, some real data. I've wiped, any customer names, etc. But I'm hoping to give. Sometimes our demo data wouldn't feel maybe real to you for good reason. But essentially, this is the first page we developed, and so it has the name up here. It has your different time frames, and then basically there's a lot of different information we can get, and where it gets kind of cool. So let's say I just want to look at 2021. It's going to filter my data for 2021, and so we can kind of see what this last year has looked like. And then if you wanted to drop down and see, well, what did it look like? I think that's the week by week. We can also look at, obviously, Saturdays and Sundays. It looks like not a lot of jobs are, your revenue comes in those days. It looks like maybe Thursday's popular. And so we can start kind of filtering through this different information. You can also look at individual sales reps. So we can see in May, Bill did 2.6 million. It looks like in one job. So Bill had a great job that month. I think Reese, yeah, this is where demo data doesn't come through. But down here, you could compare your different sales reps. And this, again, is an example. So what we would do is we'll set you up this demo dashboard, and we kind of we wouldn't necessarily remake an entire dashboard, but we would want to make sure we'd say, hey, you know, what are the 2 or 3 questions that are most important for you to have answered? So now I'm going to go into this second page. And this is a little bit more detailed, right? Let me just pull this partner name over. So this is where you could see, I know a lot of times, you know, people ask to see a list of all their jobs and X status. So I could look at all of my accepted jobs and then have a list of the job numbers. And again, I've wiped the customer names on here, but you can have an idea. So right now, this is a few different clients pulled in together, but for a few different ActionFlow clients, we have 16, almost 1,700 jobs. With about 5 million in revenue at 85 square feet that are currently accepted. So we can see templated is 1421, paid, that's the important part. It looks like right now that may not be accurate, but you can start to get an idea of how quickly the data gets filtered, which is the exciting part. This next page is marketing and sales. Not a lot of people are using this. So actually, this is a great example of where having data can kind of make you aware of where you might want to continue growing in your data collection, or you might notice some discrepancies, and we can go through a data reconciliation process. But few people are using this lead source button, and I think I can pull that up real quick. And that can provide some pretty nice information about obviously where your customers are coming from. But again, if you're not keeping track of that data, lead source, if you're not keeping track of this data, we can't show it in Power BI. But if you were to keep track of it in ActionFlow, that's information we could give you. And I guess, and one person's keeping track of it, it looks like they have quite a few repeat customers, which is great. Leads and sales, this is another similar page where you could filter through each one of your sales reps and get an idea of close ratio, sales, the number of quotes or sales they're getting each month. And when we are setting this up, I always want to be really careful, because you might look at this and it might look like Bill is really slacking. But again, when we're first looking at your data, you take everything with a grain of salt, because we don't want to necessarily take away conclusions until we're sure the data is accurate. On this next page, we can look at top performing colors, and this is where I really like having real data. I think this resonates with people pretty quickly. So we can look at 2021, and we'll look at, you know, what was the top color in January. It looks like ice white, Carrera Marmy, Luna Pearl, etc. So a lot of times when people see this page, they say, you know what, I know that that's true, or at least I have a sense that that makes sense to me. Let's see if that was pretty consistent, if those colors. So yeah, for the data that we have, it looks like iced white pretty consistently was the top color. Yeah, if anyone has if that resonates, you're welcome to say, yep, that's us. That makes sense to us too. We can also start filtering by, you can look at a specific zip code. I think this is our demo account, so it looks like that color is not coming up. Let me see what. Okay, in this zip code, ice white was popular. And that's not quite working actually the way I would want it to. What we'd want it to do is you'd filter for a specific zip code, and then you'd see what those colors are popular in that specific zip code. You could also look at your different builders. If I pick a specific builder, these are a mix of fake and real, so it might be a little bit harder to tell. Let me go to the partners page. In this case, they wanted to be able to compare what partners are quoting us a lot of jobs and then which ones are actually bringing us install revenue. So in this top one, we can see, if it was up here, you could see, okay, you know, our top builder that's bringing us quotes is ABC. But if we look down here, ABC isn't even a top partner by install revenue. So we know that that partner is not is not actually fulfilling their quotes. You could compare the status of all the jobs with the final statuses. So if you see a lot of jobs that are created, but there are no final statuses of installed, that would be another place where you would know that the job actually doesn't get all completed all the way through. Inventory, this is a page where we can, generally have a overview of what your inventory looks like. So we could say, all right, for Caesarstone, we have 30 slabs available. Here are the slabs. I could look at a specific slab and then look at the history of that slab. So this Alpine Mist was made available in November of 2019, and then it was installed in 2020. If you were looking for a specific slab, you could do that. Right now, okay, none of these have remnants, but there'd be a way to check for remnants if you had remnants in your database. You could also look at specific jobs. So am I filtering on anything? You could look at a specific job and see what the status of the job was, or what the status of the slab was in relation to this job. So job 1422 used Sunset Canyon. And lastly, this is a profit margin page. This may be accurate or may not be accurate. A few people have said, that would be great, but I don't feel like we do our costs in ActionFlow in a way that would make this meaningful. To get started, so essentially we need to be able to filter your data based on your enterprise and based on your shop. And so we get started, we'll probably do a call specific to your company, and we'll say, hey, this is what my initial data looks like. Is this resonating with you? Does this feel like the numbers aren't quite adding up? And then we will, from the next step, we'll say, hey, and it's usually better to start with who are 2 or 3 people who would probably be heading this up, who would be most able to answer these questions about data reconciliation. And then we invite you to our Azure cloud. So basically that's how we filter your data. And then you'll get the free version of Power BI Desktop.
Power BI Desktop is where you can create and design forms. So again, we provide a starter dashboard, but if you see on the right-hand side, there are a lot of fields. And so this includes things like the area number, your SKU classes, so that would be your different kind of materials and colors. So there'd be a lot of different ways you could customize this form. In addition, you can, if you publish the report, what this does is it puts it onto the Power BI service. So that is essentially the pretty published form. So if you go over here, there's no way you can delete these visuals, and it's essentially in full function. So I can use my different filters and search through my different pages. And then in theory, if you would like, you would be welcome to share this within your organization with a lot more people. You kind of share this published version. And if you can see, this is now asking me to upgrade to Power BI Pro. So again, we integrate with Power BI, which means if you wanted, you could basically take full advantage of the Power BI platform that Microsoft offers, whether that's providing having one user license, or obviously there's this high capacity full organization license. So that would be an option if you decide we really like these dashboards and we want to be able to share them across throughout our organization. And in that situation, that would assume you probably don't want this to be editable. But if you have 2 or 3 key people, you could easily just use your Power BI Desktop. And there may be some ways where even to have multiple other key people. For example, if you keep this file in a shared folder, multiple people could be able to use this desktop app. The point is that this is a little bit less published form, and this is also it's sort of like a Word document. When we hand you that dashboard, if you save it to your own personal folder, you're able to make edits. You can underscore with your name, and you can test this out as much as you want. And if it gets to a point that you don't like and it feels messed up, then we can just send you another report. So it's nice because this dashboard is essentially its own file that you can mess around with. Or again, if you put it into a shared folder, multiple people could access that. So if I go back into the implementation process, so I'm going to go to our this support.actionflow.net Power BI page. So this is how to get started. So essentially we have a discovery call. So if you're interested after either this webinar or in other conversations, we'll have a discovery call just to show you a little bit what your specific data looks like and to just gauge how you would like to use this or if you would like to use it. In the implementation process, what we're trying to do is double check the accuracy of the data and then also start setting protocols for future data tracking. So when we get in there, we may find it looks great, or we may find there, for example, only half of the jobs have zip codes or something like that. And so we want to make sure that in the future we're tracking data as well as we can. So to do that process, first we have that discovery call, and then we have a first configuration call. So that's where we often in those calls we'll look at a specific month and we'll dive in and say, hey, you know, when I look at March, does 5,000 or $5 million dollars in revenue sound right? And you might say that's close, or you might say that's far, and then we're going to get into the specific details of which customers are included in that month and figure out why one customer may not be included or why a revenue number may be off. And so we'll start that data reconciliation process. And also in that call, we'll say, you know, I really want to be able to know my revenue per month. I really want to be able to know maybe my sales reps, or I really want to know something about my partners or my colors. So we'll kind of talk about what you're really hoping to get from Power BI. And then in between the first and second call, it's really important in order for that data to be meaningful to you, that on our end, we're going to be looking at some of the accuracy of that data. And then on your end, you're starting to get used to the platform. And this is where sometimes, you know, I may ask for a specific, if you have a spreadsheet of all of your revenue for March, I might ask for that. And so that's kind of a time where we're working together more via email and individually to do this data reconciliation process. And so then we come into that second call. The goal is that we have hopefully narrowed in on maybe even 1 month or 1 week even, and kind of found some key differences of why the data might be different. And ideally we can come in that second meeting and say, all right, that revenue number looks accurate, or that revenue is off by 50K, but we know it's going to be like that every week because we're counting credit card fees and something in QuickBooks, and we don't count those in ActionFlow. So we at least have a better sense of what that number is. And then what we get to do is start to really kind of to dig in and figure out what data visualizations you want. So once the data is accurate, it gets exciting, right? Because then we can go into another page and say, hey, I really love this lead source one, and that is a main one I want to focus on, or let's focus on getting our partner page to a really meaningful point. And so that second meeting, we get to kind of to really think about how we want to do the visualizations, or you know, what visualizations are really exciting for you. And then ideally it's kind of ready to go, and if you opened up this form, you'd be able to kind of pull something away immediately that's useful to help you make decisions. But then we'll have a check-in call, and the point of this is to basically say, are you using it? And if you're not using it, let's figure out if we can make this more useful. Again, the goal is that these visualizations would help you immediately make decisions. And so if it's not doing that, we want to figure out if there's anything we can troubleshoot. I mean, obviously being busy, there's some things we can't address, but if we say it's actually because this revenue number is more different than we thought, that, you know, when I go in there, I don't really trust it. We really want to just kind of see if there's anything we can do to troubleshoot. And then we'll have another follow-up a few months later to, again, kind of go through the same process of, hey, are you using it, and is it useful, and is there anything we can do to increase its use? So that is a little bit about what this implementation process looks like.
And I think if anyone has any questions, this would be a great time to ask questions. If I know Roderick, if you wanted to share your experience, Roderick has been using Power BI, and he has been a beta tester, which has been really helpful in the beginning. So yeah, you can go ahead and, oh, perfect.
Sure. Thanks, Kim. I just wanted to add a few comments, both on the ActionFlow app itself and how this data becomes more mature, more accurate as time comes along. This is one example of we took the starter dashboard and we now started adding customization based upon customers' requests. So I had a recent request from a customer. So this is real data. I'm doing my best not to disclose who it is, but nevertheless, I haven't got the tools that you do to hide things. But basically what we did was, this was a custom request to show the top colors and materials per customer, per account, if you will. So you can see here, on the upper left, we've chosen the second quarter of this year. We are looking at a job status specifically of invoiced. So we're not interested in any other status than invoiced. And then ultimately you have a list of all of your partners, and I've just focused in on one that would give a good example. So this is the retail walk-in account. And you can see down here at the bottom, it tells you the revenue in that period. And then to the right, it shows you the top colors of that particular walk-in customer. And you can see the revenue numbers next to each one of those colors. Now in the upper section, it also tells you the top material. That may or may not be the same as your top colors. So when you see the top material and you look now in the detail section below, you can see there are a number of colors that make up your your top level materials and colors. So it could be the summation of some of the other secondary colors that defines that Pompeii quartz is actually your top color of top material, sorry. So what I guess what I'm showing here is something a little different than what Grace has already done and how we've started adding parts and pieces to this to now customize it for the customer's needs. The other point that I wanted to bring up is all this data is exportable. In other words, you can also export the data and it now becomes a CSV or an Excel friendly file for then you to manipulate and do other things in another program that you wish to look at. The other area I just wanted to comment on is that what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop sharing that screen. I'm going to take you quickly to another one here. And that is in ActionFlow itself, it is real critical to respect is probably the better word, to respect the job status field. This field should by default never be manually manipulated by your day-to-day users. There are certain times and instances where you might need to manually change that for a reason, but if you follow your normal actions that are down below here in your actions area, this will automatically drive that job status. So when we were currently looking at ActionFlow at Power BI, which then is pulling the historic data from ActionFlow, it really, a lot of the top level data relies on invoice dates. So if the status was invoiced, it would know when that was. Other reports rely on created date. Other reports might rely on fabricated. So there's different parameters that it goes by. Same thing with the inventory. It has its own internal status reading. So kind of important to kind of keep that in mind as you go through this. The only other comment I wanted to make, and I'm not sure if Grace kind of mentioned it in when she was doing her presentation there, but that is that this is historic data at the moment. In other words, it's a copy of your database as of last night, as of yesterday. So currently, and we're still looking and experimenting, et cetera, to see if we can do futuristic type reports of what's coming your way. But today, Power BI looks at a snapshot or a copy, which is the literal sense of what's happening. It copies your database into a different area of the Azure cloud environment. So in other words, it doesn't disrupt or disturb. If you're going to try and pull a heavy report in Power BI, it is not affecting your local working copy. So those are kind of the things I wanted to say. The other comment was a couple of customers have said, well, I'll wait until this is more of a finished product. And I repeated back and said, well, it will never be a finished product because it's a custom tool. It's kind of like owning a copy of Excel and then seeing that someone has done some beautiful bar graphs and charts, and he's done some amazing pivot tables, and maybe he's done some scripting and things like that. And you say, well, I'll buy Excel when it's, when it's finished. And the comment would have to be, well, I'm the one who finished it. I'm the one who learned how to use the tool to take it to its next level. So my primary reason for wanting to kind of demonstrate what we had done recently for a client on the top materials and colors was to say this was something we hadn't thought of when we built our initial version of what this was. We kind of brainstormed in the beginning. There was all of us at ActionFlow and myself, and we said, hey, what would the top 10 things that customers would want to see? So we brainstormed, we put that together, and we sort of started working on it, critiquing each other and finding little errors here and there. But for the most part, it's what you come up with. It's what you need to make your business analysis more successful. It's not what we as a team come up with and present to you and say, here's the finished product. We will finish it. You will finish it the way you want it to be for your database and your needs. So again, thanks, Kim. Well done, and look forward to moving forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Roderick. Yeah, no, exactly. It's it's neat to see this, even actually in the time that Roderick and I worked together, even how you format it, and a lot of people have different preferences on how you do formatting. So I liked his even a little bit more finished product than where I had where we had put the different plots. And that's a good point. Right now, for what I can tell is we can guarantee that that data is accurate as of last night. Sometimes it seems to update, but I'm still trying to figure out how Power BI taps into the data. There are a few different ways to do that. And so it isn't, I think people have requested kind of a real-time report where, you might see a timer going and you might see your jobs getting installed in real time. Right now, we haven't really been able to do that, and we're trying to figure out if that's something we can do with Power BI. Obviously, that would be storing a lot more data, and so we're still working through some of those questions. So that's a good point, Roderick. And we would definitely be excited if we could get to that point, but that may not be top priority. So I'm trying to think what else you were talking about. Designing your own ports. Yeah, it never really is. In the same way that in the ActionFlow reports, there's a million different ways you can look at data. And so we want to equip you to be able to customize your own reports. And hopefully it can be a really fun thing. That's what's cool about Power BI is you can pull things together pretty quickly and get some pretty cool answers to your data questions. So yeah, does anyone else have any
Got
comments?
one more comment,
Okay.
Grace, if I could, just quickly. So this is, Power BI really was in response to a real plethora of requests for custom reports, and got to the point where there just was no way that ActionFlow as a team and as programmers, and even myself as an integrator and support role, that we could come up with all the custom combinations. As you know, the grid view is your area to do that, but it has its limiting factors. So Power BI was the solution that we were looking for to build custom reports for our clients. and not put the burden on the programming team. The data's there. It's just the mining of the data, and it's just not possible to provide. We looked at building a custom report module within ActionFlow, and it just didn't seem feasible in Power BI. Being a native Microsoft app sitting over ActionFlow, which is a native Microsoft solution, it just made perfect sense to tie the two together. And Power BI as a product, as a base product, is no charge to you. The monthly fee that's associated with Power BI has more to do with the integration and development and support and time that goes into it. You will find that it's a bit of a steep learning curve to get into it, unless you're happy with the default dashboards and views that are presented to you. But to build custom reports and views is a little bit of an uphill climb. But once you get the hang of it and where the data is and what fields are pulled here and what those fields mean, I think if you're into this, you could really take it to a next level.
Yeah, that's a great, I don't want to make this, that's the cost. I want to make sure we address that. So essentially, and we put this in an announcement, if I think it's been maybe a month or two ago. If it depends on which price structure you're under, we have bundled this advanced analytic, this other advanced analytics, and also the paperless solution. We've bundled that. And so no one is required to use this. No one is going to be forced to upgrade at all. We bundled 2 or 3 large features into one package. And so if you have specific questions, we will definitely get into, okay, wait, how much is this going to cost me per month? So it depends on if you've been with us for a while. There would be a cost associated per month with bundling these a few of these features together. If you're a new customer, I think that those features are already included. So we'll definitely be, I think we'll be reaching out to you each personally to each company to go over what that would look like. And again, no one will be required to take advantage of this. So you might decide, hey, this looks awesome, we would love to do it later. You may say, hey, let's go ahead and move forward with 2 or 3 of these bigger features. But yeah, the base cost for using Power BI desktop is free, and pulling your data is free. That's just part of the process. So that's a good point. Yeah, are there any other questions? And again, if you have specific questions for your company, then we can definitely have a call and just look at the data for your company and see what state it's in. And sometimes you kind of get in and you can immediately pull some things out. And sometimes we say, well, wait a minute, we actually think of our revenue as happening when the job is accepted, whereas right now we're showing it as when the job's been installed or something like that. So we can kind of work through those things. Thank you all for being here, and we will let you know when the next webinar is, and have a good day.